Hello, everybody, and welcome to the live recording of the Young Screenwriters Podcast. I am so freaking stoked for today. We have Esha with us, and we have obviously Theo. How are you all doing this fine day?
It's Friday. It's a long weekend in Canada. Happy
What
long
Yes.
for?
weekend, yo. I don't even know what weekend this is actually. It's May 24 weekend, and that's all I know about it. So happy May
They used to
24.
call it May 24.
Yeah.
Is that like because of the year 24, or is it because of like the day?
Um, I think it's because because it usually falls around the 24th, but also because a 2-4 of beer is what you would drink on May 24 weekend. I think
Oh,
that's where
so
that's a Canadianism. I'm actually not sure where that comes from.
May 24.
May 24 weekend. I think it's like
Victoria Day.
Victoria. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't support the monarchy, so.
I had no idea that this was a thing. Interesting. Well, we don't have this holiday. Yeah, I agree, Jim. This is like the most Canadian thing I've ever
Canadian.
seen. And
It's
Isha,
it's
you're
the first,
Canadian too.
warm weekend.
Yeah,
I'm always
exactly. It's sunny out there, so super excited.
Young Screenwriters is getting taken over by Canadians. That is
Oh
all I'm
well.
saying.
We're taking over the world.
And I don't mind.
Exactly.
Please take us over. And you have some fans here already.
Hey, it's a great friend of mine.
There we go. It's gonna be super fun. Oh, Canada. I agree. I want to go to Canada. I'm working on like a live game that's going to be played there, and I'm trying to use it as an
Oh,
excuse
cool.
to go to
Well, let's do a
Toronto.
retreat. Don't go to
Yes. Oh,
Toronto.
well, that's where the game is going to be. So I have to at least swing by Toronto,
Okay, well,
and
you can
then
come and stay at my in-laws if you want.
I want to go to Alberta because that's where they shoot Winona Earp,
Girl,
and I'm gonna.
you don't wanna go
And
to Alberta.
Calgary is like the big city or something that they go to in Winona Earp. So I feel like it's important. But cool. All right, I think
The,
that we're
Calgary airport smells like, cows.
that would
Of
the
course it
one
is.
here, the one in Kentucky smells like horses, like, it's in the middle of horse farms, and it's tiny, so
I would say that, Alberta is very similar to Canada's Kentucky.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's
Interesting.
very conservative. There's, beautiful stuff out there, obviously, the mountains and all of that is beautiful, but, culturally, it's very conservative.
That
Sorry if
sounds
there are
like
any
Kentucky,
Albertans out
beautiful
here.
and conservative. Um, cool. Let's go ahead and we can hop in. I don't wanna wait anymore. I'm very I've been excited about this since we talked about it, Esha. I'm like, "I need to know this information so bad." Okay. Alright, let's play our music, and we will get into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Young Screenwriters Podcast. I'm Alexie, and I'm here today with Theo and a special guest, Esha Sandhu, who is a VFX production coordinator, VFX production coordinator.
You got
And
it.
I got it. I got there. And so today is going to be really fun because if you have ever written a script that has explosions or, fun, crazy things happening that are going to require a lot of post production work, it is extremely useful to understand that process and what the people who are working on those VFX are doing behind the scenes to bring those things to life so that you can write better scripts and hopefully not give them headaches. So that is
That's so
that is
funny.
so that's loosely what we're talking about here today. And also Isha is a member of the Young Screenwriters community that we are very happy to have around. I know you and Theo have done a lot of
Oh yeah.
morning writing and write-ins and stuff. So this is going to be cool. So do you want to give us a little like run through of your background, what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not from Canada originally. I moved over from India and came to Canada to work in film, to study film. I studied animation and visual effects for 3 years, and I have an artist background as an animator. And then I was like, oh, this production department exists in the world. In film, I was like, okay, so I'm gonna join production. And through help of a mentor and connections, I got a job as a VFX Production Coordinator at an amazing studio in Vancouver. And ever since then, I've been in production while also working on set. And I've been a member of Young Screenwriters since 2021. It's been 3 years.
Yes. OG.
So yeah, the OG. And yeah, doing a bunch of stuff, being a filmmaker. I'm passionate about films, TVs, games, everything. So been doing all that. And I'm super excited to be here because I think it's so important for screenwriters, like everyone else and myself, to know how to have VFX if there's world building, if we have dragons, creatures, if we have explosions, boom, or, like some Marvel stuff, all that, how to write it in the script. Because I think Alexie and I were talking previously, writing something like, just debris falling or something like that, that doesn't really help VFX. It's a collaborative effort where screenwriters are descriptive and specific about what they're looking for in their visuals, and us and VFX are helping bring your vision to life. So I'm really excited to talk about everything today.
I'm super stoked. And just to talk you up a little bit, we do have your IMDb linked in the description, which is so impressive. And you've worked on things Hawkeye, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Willow series, School for Good and Evil, Lift, and Dune Part 2. So you're really doing your thing out there.
Killing it.
Ooh, Dune.
Yay.
That is awesome. So that all sounds fantastic to me. And I guess, do we want to kind of just start at the beginning? Like, what is VFX? Give us a little intro.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. VFX stands for visual effects, as everyone knows, and a huge part is CGI, practical effects, motion capture, and all that. I'll dive into a bit of basics for each of them, just for starters. CGI is computer-generated graphics where we have something that does not exist in the world, be it modeled, as you've seen in like Marvel, like something like Groot, Groot does not exist in the world. We created it. Something like the dragon in Game of Thrones. Something like polishing existing characters like the Baron in Dune, Feyd-Rautha, all polishing all the prosthetics that we have. Practical effects is what happens on set, like explosions. We can't blow up an entire city on set, right?
No,
we can't do that. We need to do that on VFX. So some set stuff where it's allowed with permits, they would do on a certain space, and then in VFX we'll make it major scale through getting all the LiDAR scans or the map of the environment that we have. LiDAR scans are how do I explain the sorry yes okay
no, you're good.
LiDAR LiDAR scans use laser to emit light, which bounces back on the surface. So that's how we get the real map of the real world. So VFX uses that a lot.
So to make sure I understand, you're saying like you'll actually, so some of your production team will go to set and will like
yes.
use these lasers to measure it out so that you can layer your effects on top of the practical stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine like scanning the map of like a part of Earth, a part of the area. So VFX supervisors will go on set and scan all that and bring it back to the studio with all the information that we have. We're going to build realistic environments and all that. Because there's a huge thing called invisible VFX, which seems really real. Like show like Last of Us, right? Like all the beautiful scenery, like a huge part of the realistic models were through LiDAR scans and digital paintings in the background. So CGI is a huge aspect of that, whether it's like making a whole new world, making a new environment, making creatures, like even if we're making digital doubles of actors, right? As their stunt doubles, there's a lot of face replacement involved as well. Like I'll take an example of School for Good and Evil. It's a Netflix feature that I worked on. There's a scene where the antagonist has like a really intense fighting scene, and it's like, they can't do that, and the stunt coordinator, the stunt person is going to do that. And as a result of which, in post-production, we're going to replace the face for continuity purposes in the film. So all of that is a huge part, you know, and explosions, which is from compositing, which is like layering all the effects. Like I previously mentioned, like we're going to have a little explosion in the area, but we can't blow up the entire city. So through VFX, through compositing, we're going to layer up explosions and post-productions and all the debris and all the smoke and all that to make it look like a real explosion. So it feels like, oh my God, it's really happening.
That's awesome. So does VFX also count for like when people do like old school Star Wars with like miniatures and stuff? Is that also VFX? Is that
Oh,
part of
yeah.
Yeah? That's cool. That's cool.
Like practical meets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so here a question that I have, I think because you're a writer as well, and you do VFX. So as you've been going through this process, what have you been learning about like your own writing and about how screenwriters can utilize what happens in production, what happens in VFX to make sure that they're like taking all of these elements into account and like saving themselves time and making sure that the process is as easy as possible for the whole team?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's a topic that I wanted to dive into, like role of VFX in storytelling, which is massive, right? Like writing slug lines or action lines for an effect you want, or for a fantastical world you want to create. For say, like a screenwriter wants to have like magic happening through their wand or something, right? Like that's the purpose. And instead of writing, there is Voldemort says Avada Kedavra, and there is magic floating through his wand. Like like instead of that, screenwriters could use there are streams of blue and white lights floating through the air, which goes, to Harry Potter, the antagonist, and all of that. And I do have an example, like a clear example of how screenwriters could better use their descriptions to use VFX in one of my favorite movies, Arrival. Alexie, if you could please pull up that example that I have. So instead of saying that the footage shows an alien spaceship floating in the sky with unknown motives, I think screenwriters could use it as footage shows wilderness, where a strange oblong object hovers over the tree line. It absorbs the sunlight, and its dimensions are difficult to grasp. At times, it appears almost concave, poised as if to dig into the planet's crust. With the description that we have here, it's super clear for VFX, the expectations, what we want to do. Okay, it's an oblong object. We know that. And it hovers over the tree line, which means it's over the horizon, so it's going to float in space, float in air. And it has unknown motives because it's difficult to grasp. We get that. And at times it appears almost concave. So for that, when we're making a 3D model in VFX, we know the shape of it, right? So it's really important to write descriptive descriptions, which are specific. It also shows the quality of our writing, right? So it's really good to write something like that instead of something that is vague, like an alien spaceship floats in the air. And it definitely is practice and knowing common VFX terminologies, and even like what you're expecting. It's like I think of it as a fine line between writing a novel description and a screenwriting description, because one of the rules in screenwriting is do not novelize your script, do not make it like a novel. But in things where you're showing visuals, like you got to use some of the techniques, because when we're reading a novel, authors usually make it as we can imagine, things, the world going on in our heads, like, say, Name of the Wind, or like Game of Thrones, Wheel of Time, all those books, made us imagine that world. And now we have, live action series of that. But the point is, having a fine line where your slug line, your action line, your descriptions are descriptive enough so the reader of the screenplay or your pilot can imagine it. And then through reading that, VFX supervisors, VFX producers have meetings with showrunners and directors, for the clear vision. But
And are you
writing
getting a
is so good.
pass? Like here's my my thought process here is I would imagine, I don't know the process that's happened for most of these scripts, but I would imagine that there is a pass that happens that is VFX specific, right? So that you would write your original screenplay, which would be vague because the reader doesn't always need to know. But I think that there's a pass at some point in production where we're saying, okay, now we need to actually think about what this would look like. So we need to do a pass to make sure that VFX knows exactly what we're envisioning. So my guess is for most of these, there is the initial screenplay, which is like proof of concept, very simple, very clear, like very clean, very, very simple. And then at some point in production, we're going through and saying, okay, we need to mark out exactly what is going to be VFX, right? Because something could be practical, something could be whatever, depending on what you're writing, and that there is a version of the screenplay through the production process that becomes this extended. That would be my guess. I don't know if you've noticed that there are marked drafts that come to you that are maybe different than the pre-prod scripts.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. It's, like you said, like with references and like we make like writers and directors, on that side, they have like lookbooks and like animatics and reference from different shows. Like they want to have VFX from like, like I'm sure like the OG Blade Runner, a lot of people, reference from that. So, all that, it's like, okay, like writers and directors know their vision, their lookbook. And according to that, the director will get back to the writer. Hey, I think we're going to add VFX in this scenario. We're going to have a different world. We're going to have a different explosion. So then through that, it's going to go back to the writer, saying, hey, okay, so we want all that. And then can you revise that? But when, like, hopefully the ideal scenario is when the script comes to a VFX studio, it's locked. We don't want to go through, because it's like, it's a lot of time anyways. But yeah, we don't want to go through like reshoots or like rewrites because that can be a pain for everyone, right?
Arrival is so freaking good. So I have a question about this example that you pulled up. So I'm reading it over and over because okay, I love sci-fi and I love to describe things. So I love that you're giving me permission to describe things. And I'm noticing that all of these details are very much about the visuals. Like they're very intentionally focusing on what it looks like and not like unfilmables or like things that you can't see. Is that, I guess I just wanted to point that out, that it seems like you can go into the details, but it needs to all stay very visual. Like it's not like giving us information about the world like, this is clearly from the future where like aliens have done this thing. It's more just this is what it literally is. This is what literally shows up on the screen.
And this might not have been version 1. Like this might be version 5 after. You know what I mean? Like there was probably a script that was bought that was not this descriptive, right? And then as they were like, okay, we've got the money, this is actually going to be made, then they probably went back through it and said, okay, we need to think about actually what this is going to look like, because when you start creating things, and Esha knows this all too well, is when you actually start making things, it's like a totally different ballgame of like, oh yeah, the visual process when you're writing on the page is a little bit different than when. So my guess is that this was not version 1. Like this wouldn't be a spec description. This would be something that in the production process that would be created.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is a shooting script that I pulled up. So you're absolutely right, Theo. Yeah. In our conversation, so great directors understand visual effects, like a director like Denis Villeneuve, right? Like he's worked on so many great films, right? And he absolutely understands how visual effects work. So my guess is like when the script was bought as a spec, He was like, oh wow, this is so much potential. And he is such a visual person, right? We all know it through his films and all that. So I'm pretty sure he went in and he's like, okay, it's gonna look like this. And he hired concept artists and all that. It's gonna look like this. And so we need to provide visual effects, the clear language of how it's gonna look like. And this is the ideal scenario, like what VFX loves to have. So we know what you want, because it's like we want to bring writers' vision to life. We want to give you that world you have built, that sci-fi element you have built, because it's so cool. So as long as it's like descriptive and like visual, and we can imagine it in our head, like reading this, like I can totally imagine, there's an oblong object floating in above the tree line,
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's very simple. Like there's a balance, right? Like where you could have gone into all the details about it and like, but they were able to do it in only, I think it was only like 4 lines deep, which is very impressive for how much it's covering. There's like, that's definitely harder than it seems, I would say, to get all of the visual of the alien ship in Arrival down to just this. It's extremely impressive and very important, right? We actually have a question that's relevant to this that I think is interesting, which is talking about like the ways that you start unraveling a reveal for later. Like if a monster is going to be made in VFX. Um, our shop dog production says, is it a good idea to use a slow build towards showing it, like revealing parts of it at a time? And they said, I love how in older sci-fi it shows a slow build to revealing the monsters. So is that something that is helpful, or that how does that affect your all's production workflow, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this also caters to a lot of, storytelling, slow build up. Like VFX, I think is totally fine with that, because this question and this area is more about the pacing of the script, like when you're going to show the monster. But like what we in VFX care about, like when you want us to show the monster, what does the monster look like? You know, what
Yeah.
does the monster look like? And tell us what it looks like so we can make it for you.
It's
Right?
logical. I love
Yeah.
that. That's what
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
about production is it's like, okay,
So
we're done with
direct. I love it.
the nonsense. Let's get into it. Like,
Exactly.
what does the claw look like?
Yeah, exactly. Tell me, are the eyes red? Hollow eyes? What is it? Is it
That's
like a monster like Quiet Place, or is it like, an actor with prosthetics that we need to polish up in post? Or do you want us to make, a horror looking ape, which is a monster?
I guess I'm a little curious about kind of the workflow, and I kind of have a two-part question. So I'm curious about the workflow that you go through for VFX, but I'm also curious, like in the cases where writers are vague, like when they just say like the monster's eyes like glare from the
Hmm.
darkness or something, and they don't give descriptions on like what it looks like. I'm curious who calls the shots then about like how that process works about deciding, okay, this is vague, this is how we're going to do it. And then I'm just curious also about the overall workflow of how you do this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Would love to dive into it. So who calls the shot is the VFX supervisor and
Mhm.
the VFX producer. And how it works is, let's say there's a script where it says like the monster eyes are green, or it's not really descriptive, right?
Mhm.
We in VFX, we don't know. So our VFX supervisor is going to request the VFX producer, hey, could you please request a meeting with the client side VFX producer, VFX supervisor. There's also a client side VFX supervisor, which the showrunners hire, or the director. And let's get a meeting with the client side VFX supervisor and the director to
Got it.
know exactly what their vision is, so we can run through the process together. They can show us reference photos. They can show us their lookbook. They can show us their storyboards, their animatic, all those things. So we have that information, because it already is really expensive VFX in terms of time and money both. And here we're trying to like, give everything to the director team like in time with good quality. So like it's really, really important for us to know all the information in the beginning, when the production team has proposed us this project to work on. Um, I can dive a bit deeper into how the process of selecting
Yeah,
a VFX studio works.
that'd be awesome.
Um, yeah. So what happens when we're filming on set? The team is the production team, the showrunners, director, the crew, film crew is filming on set. They're gonna hire on set VFX supervisor. So there's always going to be a VFX supervisor or two VFX supervisors per se on set. So they know, what to do when there's green screen or when there's motion trackers. And they're going to take notes and they're going to exactly know like what is the process we need to do in post when we are actually changing the background per se, changing an element on an actor's face. Like, if per se the actor has a tattoo that makeup cannot remove at all, VFX is going to help do that. Now that is invisible VFX. So that's going to happen. And then after the movie is shot, the showrunners, the producers, are going to make a VFX breakdown, which is a breakdown where there's a shot description, there's all the type of VFX that's going to be involved, and their preferences of the VFX studios, like who do they want to, have on their team for the VFX for. And then after that, they're going to reach out to certain VFX studios with their proposal. Hey, this is the budget. This is the type of VFX we're expecting. Do you think you can do that work? And, the VFX studio will look into the work and they're like, oh, yeah, we can do that. And then it's like a back and forth. It's like, and then the VFX producer will sit with the VFX supervisor creating a VFX bid, which is going to entail how much time the VFX is going to take for the studio to do, for the artist, for the department heads, for the VFX supervisor, how much time it's going to take and how much money it's going to take as well. So with that document, we're going to go back to the producer, to the show producer, and we're going to show them to the show producer, hey, this is what our team thinks. It's going to take this much time. All this VFX are involved, like, all these contingencies and all that. And according to that, they're going to come to a settlement, hey, okay, perfect. Yeah, we can do this within the budget. It's fine. Okay, do it. And so after that has happened, it's like, okay, we know that we have the show in our pocket. That studio is doing the show now. And after that, it's going to be a back and forth of exchanging files, right? Like we need stuff like tracking information from set. We need the green screen information. We need lighter scans, as I previously mentioned, for the blueprint, the map of the world, so we can rebuild it in VFX. We need like actors information, like if we want to make a digital double, if you want to get digital double for that, we need the actors information. We need reference photos from set. We need HDRIs and chrome balls from set, which is a part of lighter scan as well. Which is like, imagine a panorama of the entire environment.
Oh,
like
cool.
in simple language, just for VFX and the lighting and the placement of things. So we need all that, the minute details, right? We need all that from the set. And then after that, the VFX studio is going to get to work on all of that stuff.
That's
And
awesome.
how long is your prep usually for this? Like from like beginning of contract through to, I guess, production starting, and then the post-production period of time? Like how much prep do you get before filming starts?
That's a great question, honestly. I feel like it's hard for me to answer because I always like got hired during the production process,
Right.
but sometimes I was also there when they were talking about, logistics and like the pre-production process. Like in my example, when we were doing Hawkeye, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but this is just according to what I saw.
Yeah.
When we were doing Hawkeye, when they sent us the show, it took like around 3-4 months of back and forth. Meetings and like exchanging information and just, talking about what is the expectation for VFX, and all that. Around 3-4 months. It can take
Wow.
longer. Yeah, it can take
So
longer depending.
this is starting before official prep. So this is
Yes.
starting before prep. That's interesting.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. That's awesome. Do you think that so for something huge that like really involves a ton of effects, are you spending like months and months? Like how like if you work on a project like Dune, is how much time does something like that usually take?
Like the prep work or the production? Like the
The like the
actual,
VFX like from the beginning of when you
yeah.
start saying like okay here it is to like when you're like here are your files here it
Like
is
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's a great question. Huh. It depends on the deadline we have, and it depends on the back and forth of the notes we're getting. Approximately an estimate could be around 9 months to 12 months.
Wow,
Yeah.
so big
So it
project.
takes an
Yeah.
entire year. It's a huge project, especially like if we have a lot of VFX work on us. I'm sorry, I can't talk much about
right.
my last project,
No, no, sorry about
but
that. Yeah.
no, that's okay. I can't talk much about it due to, embargo stuff. But yeah, it does take almost a year usually for projects like those production. It
Mhm.
also depends on the director notes, right?
Mhm.
And that is why it's so important for writers and directors to know exactly what they want. And I know it's really hard. I know it's really hard, but it's really hard when directors and writers want to do revision when things are already in post, because
Yeah.
that means we're going to scratch everything that VFX did, the amazing VFX artists worked on. We're going to scratch everything, which is like months and months of hard work.
So what is the most annoying change that you can talk about? Like late stage change that you're allowed to talk about, even vaguely. I'm just curious,
Mhm.
like
Yeah. Yeah, I can talk about Wiggly. Oh, there have been so many scenarios in my career. It's pain. Um, it's about when clients as in the showrunners and the directors, and the client side VFX supervisors. Um, they say we want to continue with those 10, 20 changes. And I mean, it's 10, 20 versions, extra versions that they want us to do. And then they want to go back to the fifth version that we did 3 months ago. That is the most annoying thing, for VFX artists, production, every department in VFX. It's really annoying because it's like scratching the work that the VFX artist worked on for 5 months of their life, doing overtime, not really having work-life balance, not having to spend time with their family and all that. So it's really, yeah, it makes people mad, It's like, why
is
did
that a
I do all
common
this work?
occurrence? Is that like a common thing?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. But also in great productions, when I think I can at least say this much, in great productions like Dune, um, when the director knew their vision with clear
Mhm.
storyboards and clear communication between showrunner, client side to VFX, that's when the process is a bit easier, because we still need to do iterations in VFX. But when they know what they want, when they know their vision, and they've given us clear storyboards and everything is locked, that's how the process is smoother. I think there's also a talk that on YouTube, about Denis' process with post-production and stuff. He did like storyboards in the beginning, which, enabled us on the VFX side to have like a smoother time than,
Like,
yeah.
are you not always given storyboards or are they sometimes just like not from the director and so that's more difficult?
Hmm. That's a great question. I don't think I'm in the position to answer that, because that's more of a VFX supervisor
Got it.
question.
Mhm.
Mm.
But what I've seen is like in upper management meetings, I've seen is mostly the shows that I worked on, they have given us storyboards. And if they don't, like there's usually like snippets from the take on set and just, drawing on top
Got it.
of that with notes and stuff. So in my experience, we have that. And there have been experience where, we don't, and it's annoying because we don't know what you're looking for and you want us to submit like a version, and it's like, okay, this is the best we can do. You tell us if it's right or wrong.
You
Right.
need a sketch. How do you? Yeah, I don't understand how you direct without storyboards. That's like, how do you even
Yeah,
put your shot?
exactly.
How do you put your shot list together?
I know, right? Yeah, storyboards is huge.
So we have a good question from Games Brown. How should you
Mm,
keep the budget in mind when you're writing? So like, I guess tied into this, what are the kinds
yeah.
of visual effects that are like sneaky expensive, or like what are the kinds of things that you can keep in mind about budget as you're writing VFX?
That's a great question, honestly. I think one of the sneaky visual effects that's really expensive is like when there's like face replacement for straight 5 or 10 minutes, there's, a new creature. Um, Mind me, new creature is like modeling in CGI. We need to make something out of nothing, right?
Mhm.
We need to make sure it has bones and it has which is called rigging.
Mm.
In VFX, when we provide bones to the character, we need to make sure it has color, which is texturing and surfacing, which has skin to it, that's texturing and surfacing, which has life to it, movement to it, which is animation, So all those departments, it's really expensive to make a creature. And, yeah, and also compositing. Compositing is like if you have to like have that creature part of the world. If it's the real world, like, say New York, that's going to be really expensive. um, so how you write with budget in mind is it's really important for screenwriters, I think, to know the common VFX terminologies and also start talking with a VFX supervisor or someone who has been in VFX for a long time, who can provide you an idea that, hey, no, this is really expensive. You can't do that. Can we do it some other way? Can we actually cut that character? Do you have some other way around it? Because it's like, I think there have been threads and also communications with, Alexie, Adam, and Theo, and myself. When I'm writing a short film, I love fantasy, I love sci-fi, and I feel like when I'm writing something, I love world building. I write that, and I remember Theo telling me, "Do you have the budget to do that? Like, do you know how? It's like." Do you know like it's gonna create all that world and stuff? That I'm like, I am working in VFX, but still I'm like, no, I just want to write that story. Maybe one day I'll do that. But it's like pointing that out, someone you trust, someone pointing that out to you is really crucial. And then, when someone does that, in your process, the next time you're gonna be like, okay, no, I'm not gonna do that. It's gonna cost me a lot of money. And, grants are hard these days, and it's just really expensive out there. So unless you have the money for it or resources and stuff, yeah,
Oh,
do that,
but
but
you
don't.
could find like, I feel like the cool part about this is like, yes, the budget's there, but you can find really interesting ways to show things that get you
Mhm.
around the budget. Like there was a Blacklist script a couple years ago that I thought was so fascinating where it was about astronauts, and they
Mm.
wrote this into the script. Instead of being astronauts, everything was made like The Silence of Sleep, where it was all made out of like tinfoil and stuff. So it was like this really creative way to get around having a high budget film about astronauts, but it actually made the film better and more interesting because it's like, oh wow, like the visual aesthetic of this movie is going to be absolutely phenomenal. So I think that there's like a catch 22. Like, yes, like you can write the ultimate version that has the big VFX budgets, but I do think that there is merit in trying to find ways around it and seeing how cool you can make that story.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, I agree. And coming back to it, I have done something like that when I was in school. I made a short film on D&D because I'm a huge D&D nerd. I love D&D,
I
and it
Yeah.
was
watched it, it's
like,
really
oh,
good.
you did? Oh,
I
thank you.
did.
Yeah, and it was zero budget. Like I didn't spend any money except pizza
Time.
for the crew and stuff. Because also I was a student, so I was like, I don't have money. So I ended up animating and compositing and all that stuff with my team. I did it myself too, but I had a team of people who helped me bring that vision to life. And we were all students, so no one was expecting money, and everyone just did it for free, and it was extremely appreciated. But jumping on student films like those, or even like if you want to like learn some softwares yourself, there's like resources available online where you get free 3D models. There's like Turbo Squid, free3d.com, all that stuff out there if you really want it. But again, also knowing your expectations, right? If you're going into writing a script, you're saying, I want to make this look like a Blade Runner. It's not going to be possible right now, unfortunately, but you can make, like something that is close, might not be like the best quality, but one day it's going to be,
Yeah.
like Theo was saying, like ultimate VFX script, and you tone it down after until
Have
one
you
day.
seen a lot of progress in VFX in the time that you've been in it? Like I know that we can't talk about a lot of like some of the newer things, but I was just reading about the things that are discovered within each film, or like not discovered, but like the advances that we make in each film. Have you seen like significant upgrades in the way we approach things, or
Yeah, absolutely. Because in the background, like all the VFX pipeline people, all the tech artists or the technical artists, the technical heads, they are working on making the softwares better, you know?
Mm,
Like they're working on making the tools better. Like something like rotoscopy, which was so menial and tiring years ago, now it's getting better. And, people are constantly working on making things easier, tools easier through like code and programming and all that. So like even while VFX artists, VFX production are working on this, visuals, in the background, there's like huge talented teams of pipeline and all the programmers, the technical arts, the technical heads who enable us to do what we do, they make tools better. And it's like they always communicate with us. For say, like VFX compositing supervisor, they're going to be like, hey, I have an idea for this tool. I would need help of the programmer to make this better for us so we can have this thing, visual effects shot ready in time. So there's always like people working in the background. Like VFX, like it does seem like a small world, but like if you really get into the departments are huge, and there's so many talented people out there doing so much hard work every day.
that's awesome. That's super cool. Let me see. I had some more questions I wanted to chat about, and we're also getting some in the chat. Um, let's see. So we did have someone who is asking us. Here it is. How is it
Mm.
like so when you have directors who approach you wanting a specific style of VFX done, um, I guess just is that like so in this example, Shop Dog Production says, if your director prefers practical models, how do you account for how long that will take? So like, is that something that like would they go to a studio that specializes in miniatures and stuff like that? Oh, over how does that work? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I feel like you answered the question, Alexie. It definitely like I'm gonna talk about BC because I'm in Vancouver, BC. And there are studios with like their specializations, what they do. So an example is a lot of Star Wars is done at a studio called Image Engine because Lucasfilm has a great reputation with them. I used to work at Image Engine. And so they give a lot of Star Wars projects like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and all those great shows because they have worked with Star Wars before. They have the assets and they know the style that they want. So the practical models and accounting for how long will it take, it depends on the specialization of the studio. If there's a studio who works with a lot of practical models and polishing it, the client, the director, the showrunner are gonna prefer that studio over the other VFX studios. So there's a lot of studios, all over the world, but in BC, who specialize in certain things. Like there's a studio who specializes in explosions. There's a studio who specializes in making water effects. And there's a studio who specializes in making Star Wars stuff.
That's awesome.
I'm
So that
obsessed
actually
with prosthetics. Like, so obsessed. Do you guys remember the show Face Off? I wish it would come
Oh.
back. It was that competition reality show where they would make the VFX, or not the VFX, the prosthetic
Yeah.
pieces for challenges. Like, I wish that show would come back because every time I watch it, I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, oh, could I do it? I'm like, no, stop. Don't go buy all the materials. You don't need it.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
How closely do you work with the people who do the practical things, like with the makeup art? Like if you're going to try to make a person look like an alien or something, like if you're going to try to make someone
Yeah.
look different, how closely do you work with the people who are making the practical effects?
Yeah, it's a tricky question because it's more of a yes and no. Because I feel like I lead two lives where I have this visual effects personality, and then the second I have this on-set personality. In VFX, I do not work with that at all. In VFX, I majorly work with artists, producers, VFX supervisors, client side. So answering in VFX, I do not. But who would work in VFX with them is the VFX supervisors on set.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then I wanted to circle back to writing VFX again. I feel like all this information has been so useful for just like understanding what it is and what we can do. And when you and I had our initial conversation about the kinds of things we could talk about, I was very excited about the idea of the different kinds of explosions you can write and like knowing what to ask for. And you were talking about like if you say that there's going to be like a boom, does it have debris? Like is there
Yeah.
fire? Like is there this kind of thing? I'm just curious if you could talk to us a little bit more about specifically explosions
Okay.
and just like what we can keep in mind for being specific when we say those, like anything that can be helpful for the VFX team.
Yeah, absolutely. Visuals, like direct approach, like what do you want to see? You know, is there let's say a road is, like a bridge is like, exploded or something, is what type of explosion is it? Is it like a fiery explosion? Is it like a sci-fi explosion? Is there like a portal opening to the explosion? Something like that? Like what is it? Or is just like a normal, realistic looking explosion,
Mm,
where you have fire, debris, smoke, like making sure you have those three keywords, right? Like the descriptive line and arrival we talked about before. And it had those major keywords, making sure you have that. And also, knowing certain VFX terminologies help.
that's
But yeah.
that's awesome. And then I also because we are getting questions about this too. I'm curious, so if somebody wants to learn more about VFX, like if they're interested in just learning more so they can write better, or if they're interested in learning more because they want to go into VFX, what
Mhm.
kind of resources do you recommend for them?
Yeah, there's ton of resources out there. Um, like if you want to go to VFX art department, there's like VFX schools out there. There's online courses out there. There's nonprofit organizations like Women in Animation out there. Um, I was a part of that. I was teaching production. So there's that out there. A lot of resources out there. And also, hey, YouTube videos, they're free, right? Um, there's software trial versions out there. There's so much, it's 2024. There's so much right now going on to immerse yourself into it. But if you really, really want to dive into VFX and change your career, I think it's really important to know which department you're interested in. Are you interested in art department? Are you
Mhm.
interested in production department? If anyone's interested in production department, they can reach out to me. Because I taught production management, production coordination, and all that. If our department, they can try going into a VFX film school courses, YouTube, or like just supporting nonprofit organizations because there are mentors and teachers out there teaching all that things, and increasing the VFX community.
Let me pull up your email because I think you also mentor people, don't you? Is that's your
I
correct email,
do. Yes.
filmsbyesha@gmail.com? And so is
Yes.
that how people should get in touch with you if they want to do mentorships and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great time because I am currently making a course. So which will go like I'll be mentoring a group of 6 people over the course of a few months. About production, how to get into production, like leadership roles, and then boosting connections out there, having a polished resume and cover letter. One of my mentees actually got a job last year too. It
Oh,
was my first
hey.
time teaching, so I'm really happy about that. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm
Yeah.
also gonna link to a video that you shared with me. I'm gonna drop it into the description that
Oh yeah.
covers just some basics about VFX. I think it's called CGI versus VFX versus SFX, just as a resource for anyone looking to kind of learn more. Yeah, you should definitely get in touch with Esha if you are curious at all about VFX or want to break into the industry. Um, so I guess as we're kind of wrapping up, is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't? Like, do you have anything? I always ask that and I feel like I throw people for a loop. But I want to make sure that like I gave you space to talk about all the really cool things that you're doing because, I don't know what I don't know and that's why we love having you on. So is there anything else that we would that you want to share today about VFX or yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we covered everything. I think I just want to conclude it with like, everyone, us in VFX, we're really collaborative, we're amazing teams out there. So it's like, don't like, just, look at us like something that boosts your story. Because, again, there's like amazing Hollywood directors out there who acknowledge and credit VFX. And there are certain directors out there who do not acknowledge VFX at all in their credits, which
Mhm.
is not good, right? And they just say, oh, we didn't do VFX, it's all practical, which is a lie because they did a lot of visual effects, because there are
Yeah,
people out there spending, a large majority of their time working on that. So crediting VFX is really important because it's like, we're just trying to make your vision into reality while making cool stuff. So, hey, let's just make cool stuff together, like a
absolutely.
collaborative approach.
Why don't they do that? Doesn't make any sense.
I don't
Like, what do
know.
they gain by not including it? I guess because then they're like, "Oh, no, I just really made these sets and that explosion was real." Like, I don't
Yeah,
know what they gain from that,
Wild.
but
it's the old mentality. And sorry, I don't think it's offensive, but I'm sorry if it is. Old mentality that, hey, I don't want to use like CGI, like everything should be practical. I don't want to use that. And they end up using that and they don't credit us, which is like, what? What do you mean? There was no VFX in your film. You know?
The technology is there, use it. Why not? If you can make
Yeah,
if this is what's
absolutely.
gonna make your movie better.
Absolutely. It's like polishing, it's enhancing. Like if you can use prosthetics and makeup in the film, I'm sure VFX, because it's a tool to enhance everything, right?
yeah.
It's a huge part of filmmaking.
So, like, even when people have really, really good makeup, like, I'm sure a lot of us have seen those behind the scenes
Yep.
videos where they show the crazy costumes they put people in, and the actors talk about spending 6 hours in the makeup chair. Even then, that's just
Yeah.
kind of the base that they give to you all, right? Like, you all make it look better from there. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna tell you some like um fun experiences. Not
yeah.
gonna mention like, specifics, but hey, there's some times when the actor has boogers and we have to, like remove that on VFX. Sometimes, their zipper is open. We have to, you know,
That's
remove that and we fix that in
Zip that
VFX.
up.
Yeah, exactly. Zip that up, right? Sometimes
so
there's stuff
actors really
there.
need to be nice to you is what you're saying. Actors should really get on your good side, basically. So
Everyone, yeah. We're gonna make you look pretty.
That's awesome, that's awesome. And then we had, one of your past mentees show up today saying that,
Hmm.
she's one of your past mentees and highly
Aw,
recommends learning and working with Esha. She's a wealth of knowledge and a great
aw,
teacher.
aw. That warms my heart so much. Thank you,
Well,
Claire.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I feel like I learned a ton, and I'm going to be using this in my writing going forward. I think kind of the synopsis of what I gathered is that for the writer, it's super important to be clear and descriptive, right? To be very
Yeah,
clear and descriptive
absolutely.
in your writing, to
And
understand the
storyboard.
just yeah,
There you
storyboards are important.
go.
Understanding the basics of VFX, to keep budget in mind. So just thinking
Yes.
about the fact that these things do add a budget, like if you add a storm, that probably has to be enhanced with VFX, right? So just little
Yeah.
things like that can really add up. And including like being collaborative, right? This is a
Absolutely.
very collaborative process, and credit your VFX.
Please. Yes. It's the bare minimum, right?
Write it into your script. Credits roll, VFX are included. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
thank
Thanks
you
so
so
much, Esha.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Right. Hey everybody, we are now in the Q&A segment. So this is our chance to circle back to any questions we didn't get to. That was really fun, Isha. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. Let me see. So I
I'm
know
so
that we
stoked
had
for you, and I'm so excited that you're doing this work.
it's
Thank
so
you.
cool.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm there in the screenwriting group, so
Yeah,
I'd love to still, talk more about it and chat and enhance my own writing skills, while helping everyone with VFX writing skills.
absolutely. So yeah, Isha's in our Discord hanging out, and we do and comes to our sessions. And so if you want to hang out, be sure to join. It's in the link in the description. Let me see. Curious about books. Um,
Mm.
do you have any books in mind, or is it mostly videos now, or do you recommend any books?
Um, Personally, I feel like I am a visual learner and visual effects visual, right?
Yeah.
So I think I would recommend watching videos because they also explain and show you the process, of how it happens. But if you want to, get deep into the theory and stuff, you can always refer to books. That I don't know about certain books, but I'm sure I can find out and share the link with you because I haven't really used books except introduction to animation and stuff. Um, but I think these days, everything is just more visual, like videos and stuff.
YouTube is
Imagine
so good. Like, I have made
I
things
know.
I never would have thought, and I'm not, like, artistically talented, but, like, I've made, like, full-on video games and that I've done
Oh yeah, you have.
using
Yeah, yeah,
YouTube, so
yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I feel like also just my very limited understanding of this whole of technology and stuff is that it changes so fast
Yeah.
that like I had to get books at NYU that were about animation and like the software that we use, and like that's a paperweight. That was a
Mhm.
paperweight like a year after I used it because it just everything gets outdated so fast. And so my understanding is that the only things that are consistent enough to be worth getting a book about would be things like the history of visual effects, like seeing how people have done it in the past
Yeah.
and like learning about like, oh, how did Star Wars pull off this practical effect back then? And
Yeah.
then like
in Disney.
Princip yeah, and then, like, principles and things like that, like, understanding, like, your framing and, like, just balancing the frame and your shots and, like, what these different like, how to create moods, so, like, color theory and things like that. I feel like those kinds of things might be useful in a book, but in
Yeah.
terms of literally, like, how to do it, I that's gotta get outdated so quick, is by my guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Um
you're absolutely right. To add to it, there's like mood and lighting books out there, which caters to cinematography and VFX as well. It's like if you're, a VFX, a lighting artist, effects artist, it's really important for you to know lighting and VFX, realistic. Because if you don't know realistic, how are you going to make outerworldly and fantasy and sci-fi,
I imagine that physics is also something that that you have to understand, at least in like a superficial level physics
Yeah.
to make VFX look legit.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
to make an
Um,
explosion, you have to kind of know, okay, when does the debris actually shoot out in the timing? Like, is it with the fire? Is it slightly after? Is it before? Just like little things like that, I imagine.
Yeah, I just pulled up this book. There's this VES Handbook of Visual Effects. VES is Visual Effects Society. It's industry standard VFX practices and procedures. I think if someone wants to specifically get a book, I think that would be a great resource.
Let me grab a link for everyone and I will drop it in.
Sure. Maybe I can send it on
Here we go.
Discord to you
I
guys.
got an Amazon
Oh,
link, which might not be the best, but it'll at least show you what the book is. There it is.
yes, that one.
Cool. So I just dropped that there. Let's see. Matthew says, on Extraction 2, we made Chris Hemsworth look good, believe it or not. That's funny. Do you recommend college for VFX, or should I just get into the software?
If you have the resources for college or school for VFX, absolutely do, because I did go to school for VFX and animation. But the
I
art
hope the
side,
you made was probably worth it, right? Like,
yes, absolutely. The difference is like I went to like the art side of visual effects and animation, but I ended up getting a job in production, which was not through what I learned, which was more through like what I self-taught myself in a way, and also through industry connections, attending talks and finding amazing mentors out there. But I think that the art helped me immensely because I feel like that makes me stand out in production because I know the pipeline and it's easy for me to talk to artists. And it's like I also sometimes work on set for VFX for my friends and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to go to the art side of VFX, I would recommend going to school. If you want to go to the production side, get in touch with me, or I can recommend people too.
Awesome. I think we had we had a lot of people in the chat. So let me see if I missed any questions. Here's another one. Any instance where
Interesting.
VFX is shown as part of a test reel to gather funding? Or I guess, like, would you ever put together a test reel when you're making a bid to kind of show that you can do it? Or is that usually just something that goes
Mm,
off your past experience or yeah.
I feel like maybe 20 years ago, but like now there are so many already established VFX studios out there that they don't need to prove it. Also, for instances where the studios are new, they usually have senior people who have been in the industry for like decades. So they just look at their demo reel, their portfolio, what kind of people are there in the studio? Can they actually handle it? Right. And of course, there's been instances where clients just take away the project from the VFX studio because they can't do it, and then they give it to
Mm.
the more experienced one, and that's how their reputation is built, and then they keep coming back to the studio, like Star Wars shows and stuff. Like Image Engine did Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mandalorian, on all the amazing Star Wars shows because they do have this great reputation, and they have amazing artists and amazing crew there who can actually do all that stuff. So it depends on the reputation as well.
What is the most common like software that is it Maya? Is that one that you use? I might have made that up.
Maya is for animation and modeling, compositing, and compositing is Nuke, and if you're doing effects, all the physics and effects stuff, it's Houdini.
Houdini?
oh, Houdini,
Yeah,
know him.
yeah.
Got it.
Is anyone
That's
using Blender anymore, or is that passe now?
Oh, Blender's good, but I think it's going to take a long time for for it to become an industry standard software because Maya has been such a long there for such a long time, and it's really reliable. And like studios have their own tools inside of Maya. But I think it's going to take a lot of time for Blender. I've used like Blender as well, but personally, I don't like the camera in Blender. I'm a Maya fan through and through.
Is Adobe After Effects something that's in the pipeline or not really?
Not in like CGI, like 3D visual effects, but like
Right.
2D, yes.
That's okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that we hit all the questions. Um, yeah, you have a lot of fans, Isha.
Oh,
Well, thank you
love
so
it.
much for joining us, and we'll be sure anyone can check the link again for contacting Isha, checking out her IMDb page, learning more, and I think that that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Have a
so
great
much
week.
for having me.